So let's get started prepping up a garment for our t-shirt quilt. The first thing you're going to do is just start roughly cutting down along the seam lines. I'm not going to bother picking out these seams or anything like that. I'm just going to roughly cut it apart. What you want to do is cut off, the waistband, all the seams, and create a nice big piece of fabric, as big as you can get it out of the garment. In this case, this is a pair of shorts. Probably the biggest piece I'm going to get is this area right here. I don't like having any seam lines within the garment itself. There were some times that I did incorporate something like a pocket into that piece, and that was kind of nice, but for the most part, most of the pieces I cut were just like this, cutting off all the seam lines all around and just getting a nice big piece of fabric. Okay, the next step is to stabilize this. Even if your garment is 100% cotton, and in this case this is a woven cotton, kind of similar to quilter's cotton, it doesn't matter. This was a worn garment. It's very, very soft and pliable from all the years of wear, and it needs to be stabilized. So I'm going to flip it over onto the back, and I'm going to roughly cut a piece of French fuse. This is the stabilizer I like that will stabilize the fabric and stop it from stretching, and it also is very, very lightweight. It's not going to change the hand of the fabric. It's not going to make it stiff and hard within the quilt, but it is going to reduce that stretch. It's going to make it a lot easier to work with. So as you see, I just lay it out, and with French fuse there's like a rough glue side and then a really soft silky side. You want to make sure that the glue side is down on the wrong side of your garment. Place the fabric down, and it might actually also be a good idea to press the garment too, so that way it's nice and flat. Then top it with the French fuse, and the French fuse needs a slightly lower setting. This is a kind of a polyester knit material, and it can melt, so be kind of careful with it. Take the fabric and flip it over so you've got a nice pressing cloth here, and then you can hit it with an iron. And I do this at high temperature, like cotton setting, with no steam, but I'm using the pressing cloth here between my iron and the French fuse. If I hit it directly, more than likely it would melt on this setting. So with our pants pressed, you can see the French fuse went on. It's nicely secured to the fabric, and it's just really reduced that stretch, but it's still very lightweight, still feels like just plain fabric. Okay, I'm going to pull my cutting mat back here, and I want to trim this down to a square or a rectangular shape. What I generally did was I started with the largest rectangular square I could get out of that material. You are going to have some waste, obviously, but getting it down to a rectangular square is definitely going to help you when it comes to making this into a block. So that's one piece I've prepared. Let me show you a few others. This was my son's Popeye shirt, and you can see I aim to center up that design right in the center of the block, and that was really effective, looked really good. I had a couple other pieces of plaid and some corduroy. These pieces ended up getting pulled. All of these pieces ended up getting pulled from the quilt because, number one, this was just too plain. It didn't have a good look, and the plaid attracted too much attention. The straight lines were just a little bit too attention grabbing. That was just my opinion for my particular quilt. My best advice is to prep up all your fabric, cut it, get the French fuse on it, cut it to the closest square rectangular size, and then get it all up on the wall and take a look at it, or on the table where, if you have a design wall, obviously that's going to work out great, but look at every piece and then start trying to arrange your colors and kind of pull and figure out what's going to look good for you. So for the blocks that I am making, I am using a fabric foundation that goes behind the entire block. And my foundation is cut to 18 inches. So this is called foundation piecing. The foundation is the fabric. So we're going to just kind of build off of this. It's a little bit like a log cabin and a little bit like a crazy quilt all in one. So I've got these pieces left over from another project, and I just cut them down. So I'm going to flip it up, kind of get it nicely aligned, take it to my sewing machine, and sew this seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to get started piecing, and I'm using a 1.5 millimeter stitch length and just sewing through all of those layers and, you know, trying to keep my 1/4" presser foot aligned with the edge of the piece and the t-shirt quilt. Just trying to keep all that in alignment. And it is 3 layers, so if you start seeing some shifting and bunching, you might want to stop and just smooth everything out. When I get off the edge, just cut it with my cutter and then press it open. Now, normally I would definitely stitch this with a matching thread color, maybe a dark blue or a black, but I wanted you to see what this looks like. There's my seam line. I'm flipping this down, kind of smoothing it out with my hands, and then I'll give it a press with my iron. When you're pressing over emblems and designs like this, it's a really good idea to use a pressing cloth, just so it stays safe and you don't accidentally melt it to the bottom of your iron. At this point, you want to take a look at these sides here. If you have a lot of overhang, just kind of take it and clip your stitches right to the edge of the t-shirt fabric and fold it over. This is what I like to do. I like to fold it over so it forms a straight line and then give it a press. And this is kind of going to guide me on how to trim that off nice and straight. So now I've got a fold line. I'll just grab my scissors and trim that up. And this will make attaching the pieces to the sides much, much easier, having that trimmed up nicely. Okay, so that's the first piece. That's all the steps to get one piece on and attached. I'm going to do the exact same thing, piecing this piece on. And here's a picture of what the block looks like after that piece was attached. And then I'm going to trim those edges again and attach the 2 sides. Of course, everything together, my block ended up being just a little bit big, so let me show you how to trim it up next so it's ready to go, ready to quilt. So with our block pieced, the next step is to trim it down to the size of the foundation. And this doesn't have to be super exact or perfect. Just kind of line up the edge of your ruler with the edge of that foundation and trim off any excess fabric. When you flip over your block, you might find some places where your fabric didn't extend all the way to the foundation, and that's okay. I'm actually going to mark within the block. So my foundation was cut at 18 inches, and I am marking within the block a 16.5-inch square. And the reason I'm doing this, just like always, is because it's far easier to have a little bit of extra fabric on the outside of your block so that you don't have to quilt right to the edges. So it's up to you if you want to center this up totally square with the center panel or kind of do it slightly kind of, angled. That kind of looks kind of cool. It's totally up to you. I kind of played around with it. Some of my blocks are nicely angled, some of them are straight on. This one looks good about right here. So I'm just going to go around with a marking pencil and mark this line. And then I'm going to stitch along this line just to secure it. So here's what it looks like after you stitch along that edge. This is just a nice layer of stability, holds those outer pieces of the block securely to the foundation and makes it ready to quilt. So that's it for learning how to piece a t-shirt block. I really hope that you enjoyed learning all these steps today and it has inspired you to jump on your sewing machine, pull out all those garments, cut them up, and get ready to put them all together into a beautiful quilt. With this method, it's a quilt as you go method, meaning you're going to quilt each block separately and then put it all together at the end to finish your quilt. If you want to follow along with me, I'm going to be quilting several of these in videos coming up, both with my walking foot and in free motion. So it's going to be a really fun project to share and learn a lot about machine quilting. Definitely find more videos on this project at leahday.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.